If you're not repurposing content, your brand is gonna die. Today's video is all about content repurposing, how the system works, and a real-world example of how I actually do it with my own content. The fundamental question we have to start with is why repurposing? Why is repurposing so much better than just creating a bunch of content? Let me show you here on the whiteboard. So if we have brand A and we have brand B, so brand B is repurposing, brand A is single content, okay? So let's say they have a halo and that takes them 2 hours, and then they go off and create a satellite piece for another 1 hour and another satellite piece for another 1 hour. You can see how this very linear progression of, if we look at a graph, which I'll put in the middle, time, content. So this is the amount of content, and this is the time it takes. This is a very linear graph, or even sometimes more like that, right? The more time you take, marginally more content as we go. Now, if we look at brand B, which I'll put in red, you have the halo piece, which is your premier piece of content. Then that gets redistributed to a satellite, another satellite, and again, it's the same piece of content. You're not doing two separate pieces of content that have nothing to do with this halo. So this halo gets split into maybe even 3 satellite, and this is where you do something like that. And that's where key for repurposing. So less time, more content without compromising on quality. A really simple way to think about this is if you have, let's say, a newsletter. So if I have a newsletter and my newsletter is split into kind of, let's say, 4 major parts. We have A, B, C, and D. And for me, maybe this is news, maybe this one is thoughts about a current topic or something, or even thoughts about the news. C might be a market trend, and D might be a client story. So each of these 4 parts that you've just written with your newsletter all of a sudden become scripts for either satellite short form content, or even better, other Halo YouTube content that's a little bit more longer form. All of a sudden you have, 1 video, 2 videos, 3 videos, 4 videos, already scripted and ready to go. And that's the power of repurposing. So now a real world example to show you how I use this in my own life. So I'll actually have Kelvin put a screenshot of the Notion that we use in the back end, and video 9 of our Athleadership channel, not the actual number, but just in our planning. Video 9, the previous video, was all about comparing TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. That's 3 analysis videos just off the top of my head. But how we did it is we said we went YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and we are going to draw lines here, and we're gonna compare these with 8 different metrics, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 different metrics that we're gonna use to discover each one of these. And Kelvin will show you guys on screen what I'm talking about. But we had speed of discovery, we had audience depth, we had trust, we had longevity, investment, time investment, monetization, your ICP precision, career. So as we, sorry, that's YouTube. You get what I'm saying though, right? So we had this metric, and then we went and ranked YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram on all 8 of these things, right? So in my head, the genius behind, well, I'm not a genius, but the genius behind content repurposing is that now I can look at this and I can say, okay, I can do one of 2 things, or maybe a couple different things. And this is, to the title of this video, 10 different content ideas that I'm gonna show you how to do. We can go and create 1 YouTube video, just like I did the previous video. You guys can go watch it, I'll link it below, of this entire breakdown of the comparison between YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. The other thing I can do then is take that video and either do a literal screen grab recording of camera A and camera B looking straight up at the camera, hello. So camera A and camera B stacked on top of each other of each of the moments that I described one of these, right? So if I said trust. So if I go to my notes here and I say, hey, section 3 is trust and authority. So how much credibility does the platform naturally create? And then I ranked it. TikTok's got a really low one. YouTube has a really high 5. And Instagram has more of that middle ground 3. Just that on its own can be one short form piece of content. And all I did was put the 2 camera angles up on top of each other as I'm describing it and use it as a 10 or 15 second short when it's actually already part of a larger scale YouTube video. So if we extrapolate that out, that's 8 different ones straight off the bat that I don't even have to create extra content. Now, what I could do is I could take that same example of audience trust and authority and say, okay, based on the platform I'm using, I can go and sort of re-script that a little bit for a little bit more of a punchy hook and then use it as, refilm it as an Instagram short. That's also a great idea. Now, in order to hit our KPI of 10, our key performance indicator of 10 different videos from this one video, this one piece of content, what I might also do is I might cut out all of the times where I mentioned YouTube. So YouTube, I can also go this way, right? So I can say, I can add up all of the scores in a really quick and punchy and fast short. I can say, YouTube has speed of 1, audience depth 5, trust 5, longevity also 5, investment 1, monetization 5, ICP 5, career 5. It has a really great thing, and I can either cut that out of the current YouTube video or, as I said before, I can re-script that. Now, the way to think about this too is if your video is set up like this one is, where you have sort of a framework or some sort of metric that you are describing to your audience, or you're trying to teach something or show some example of your past experiences, this is where you can think about it, where if I'm looking at this graph right now and I have all the numbers in front of me and I have the footage in my computer, or I'm talking to my editor about the footage, what I might say is, hey, let's cut out all of these ones of the categories, because the way that we wrote them in the notes on the Notion app, which you'll see here up on screen, makes it really easy to short. They're each basically a little section, so we can just stack those 2 together, call it a day for an Instagram short. That being said, if I wanted a little bit more of a synopsis of a YouTube, a TikTok, and an IG, and I wanted to make it kind of a 3-part series, I would literally just pull out the scores from each one of these 8 categories, and I would put them into a quick YouTube script, and I would say, here's how YouTube scores along the 8 metrics of success when it comes to picking a platform for a personal brand. And then I would roll out each one of these scores and say a little bit about why each one was important. And just to clarify this message even further, I'm just going to show you what my optimization and repurposing actually looks like from a structural perspective. So if we look at it as a massive pyramid, those aren't incredibly straight lines, but you get what I'm saying. So if we have this as our halo, then we have our secondary platforms, and then kind of tertiary and whatever the 4th version of that is. You get what I'm saying. So my halo is actually my newsletter. I put the most time and effort into writing the newsletter. So the newsletter is comprised of 3 to 4 parts, and this is for athleadership. Okay, that's a P, not a D. Athleadership. Leadership. Oh, there's an I in there too. Man, look at me. So newsletter, 3 to 4 pieces or parts. Okay, and then because this is written, this then goes into a long YouTube script. And usually what happens is each of these 3 parts, so 1, 2, and 3 parts, which I'll notify in red, each one of these becomes its own YouTube script. And then all I'm really adding is a hook. And that's all I'm really adding, because really, if I spend the time here on the newsletter on those 3 to 4 parts, and again, this is one newsletter that has 3 or 4 components to it, or 3 to 4 sections, if you will, turn those into each one of those. And then just like we did before, we can turn each one of these videos into 1, 2, 3, even up to 10 or 12, like the previous video about the comparison between YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, into 10 videos. So then we go to short, let's do that in here, short platform for me is IG, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Then down here, you could maybe do like carousels. That's probably what my next thing would be, because then it's just a linear progression from, I can take each one of these short videos, right? So again, each one of these has its own little branch off, and then each one of these short videos can become its own Instagram carousel with a transcription of what I had just said in the short, and then I can make it look really nice graphically on Canva or something like that. So with one newsletter, if we just go from this framework here, that's 1, 2, 3, and let's be conservative and say from each of these 3 YouTube videos, I'm only getting 3 more, right? So we've got 3, 6, 9. So we've got 1 here, 3 here, 9 here, and then if you just do linear, 9 there as well. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 content pieces from 1 newsletter. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how you don't die when you are trying to keep up with the enormous amount of content that is posted every day when building your personal brand and also playing your sport. Stay dangerous, y'all.